you doing, Danny?
Honestly, great. I've been having a blast. Life's good, work's good. Probably like most of you, the AI stuff is like totally taken over my brain over the past few weeks, which just is very exciting in terms of velocity building stuff. But also like I'm making sure I'm trying to like rethink or like question everything, all of my assumptions, because I think they might all change. But I've definitely been infected.
Yeah. I think that I'd like to understand how Etherealize uses AI. I'd like to, talk about bringing Wall Street on chain. I feel like that's been covered in a lot of different places already. And then, maybe we'll start with the AI because you brought it up. So how are you using AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have 9 developers. We're shipping 10 times as much code as we did 2 months ago, and it's really good and high quality, and like I feel like we're just kind of getting started. And it seems like very soon we're going to be bottlenecked by deciding what to do, not doing it, which is pretty insane. But it's like, so from an engineering standpoint, like we're trying to have unbridled optimism. From everything else, I'm trying to assume that like everything is going to change and like everything that we thought was true might fuck us and like get in the way of our goals. And I guess to be clear, my goal at Etherealize is to re-architect finance or protocolize finance from the inside out, rather than like building DeFi over here and trying to pull them in. Like go in the inside and rewire the internals and make it better from a hopefully Ethereum aligned, protocolized open finance way. But I'm like sitting here questioning everything. I'm like, well, if the bots are in charge of the economy, then I mean, maybe I don't know if I should say this on video, but I'm like, oh, will financial institutions exist in 5 years? Like, maybe the islands of protocolized finance we've created over the past decade, the bots are going to use that. The bots are better at accumulating capital and coordinating capital, and like all of the capital is just going to move into that world. But that's not exactly what I believe, because there's a lot of reasons that won't happen or won't happen at the speed. But I'm spending a lot of time just making sure that I can accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm not going to be totally blindsided, but I think we all need to also assume we're going to be blindsided.
I'm wondering if you can take us down to the object level. Etherealize, from what I understand it, is upgrading Wall Street to use Ethereum. And what kind of projects are you working on? I mean, what are you able to disclose about like actual things that you're building? I'm just curious about this infrastructure being upgraded and like tangible examples of how on-chain infrastructure is being used in New York and in Wall Street.
Yeah. So there's a lot there. I think that there's a hard difference in reality between January 1st, 2025, before and after, in terms of this word tokenization. And we're in a new era, and the way that we're thinking about it is fundamentally different. And
sorry to interject, this is not an AI-driven thing. This is a regulatory change.
This is what is possible in the design landscape because of the amalgamation of the regulatory shift and the tech being ready and the financial institutions having FOMO. And that all kind of really came to a head in 2025. I think at the beginning of 2024, Larry Fink said the world was going to be tokenized. That's the CEO of BlackRock. The ETFs were approved. The SEC stopped investigating Ethereum 2.0. That kind of sucked when they served me at my house. But and for better or worse, the soon-to-be president of the United States launched a meme coin. During that wave of 2024, like the world just turned on its head, and financial institutions went from we can't touch that stuff to help us. Like we're gonna get screwed if we don't do this. And so if you look at tokenization, and this is the word, and we have to use the word because it's the word everyone knows, but it almost feels like the wrong word now that we're shifting. But tokenization previously was, okay, there's this massive asset class. Let's like take some of it wrap it up, put it on chain, and then like, maybe you get better distribution, maybe you can integrate it into compliant DeFi, maybe whatever. But like chucking $50 million on chain at a time, or even $1 billion on chain at a time, is not going to be how we upgrade the world. And so instead, I think what opened up at the beginning of 2025 and the way that we're thinking about tokenization, we're thinking about, is much more about like upgrading markets from first principles. I don't want to bring a little bit of the asset on chain. I want to look at a market, the way that market works, the rules governing the assets in the market, the actors in the market, how the assets can move, how interest payments are paid through the asset, all sorts of everything, and encode the rules into the token itself. And when you do that, it's just better. Like everything, especially in some of these like esoteric private markets, like trillion-dollar, multi-trillion-dollar markets that are just haven't been upgraded in decades. Like if you just write the code that says this is how the market works and put it on chain, it's just fundamentally better. And in that way, I think we're going to see trillion-dollar markets upgrade in lockstep, rather than like trying to like put some of this fund on chain and whatever. And so that's how we're thinking about tokenization or protocolization or fundamentally upgrading markets and upgrading Wall Street systems. Is like, how does the market work? Encode the rules in the market on the asset themselves.
It feels like you're just pitching upgrading finance.
Yeah, which it's not like, I don't think it's rocket science. It's a hard coordination problem. You have to like speak the crazy language. I couldn't do it on my own. Vivek is deep, traded on Wall Street for 10 years, deeply connected in that world, speaks the language, knows how to construct deals, all sorts of stuff. But like, yeah, we're trying to upgrade finance.
What's driving these decision makers? Is it fear? Is it greed? Is it something else?
So $80 billion financial institutions are very large, and there's a lot of different people and a lot of different decision making. I would tell you, like, the CEO might see the future and want tokenization for a reason. The COO might be convinced they could turn their 90-person back office team into a 5-person back office team. The traders realize they could trade more stuff if their assets didn't take 10 days to settle. And so it kind of depends. It's a multifaceted. It really depends on who you're talking to in the institution. And some of them are just like, they're blinded by tokens, which is, I mean, look at the graphs. Often they go down only, so I don't know why it seems very naive. But there's many different reasons. I think there's a mix between people that see the opportunity and people that are worried that if they don't do it, they're going to get screwed over. When they're looking at people like Robinhood making an L2, or they're looking at, I don't know, all sorts of stuff. The fintech is a very real concern for them.
I got 2 more questions, then I want to hand it over to the audience to start thinking about what you want to ask Danny. The first question is, Danny, you've been in Web3, I think, as long as I've known you, a couple cycles now, and I think you understand the cypherpunk ethos. And now you're going to Wall Street, which are sort of like the trad institutions that, the lore has always been about disrupting. And so I kind of look at you as being bilingual, like speaking both languages. And so
my sister would say I'm a Gemini.
Okay, great. I'm wondering if there's any stories that come to mind of like the culture clash between the two things, or like having to navigate differing expectations or cultures, or like, maybe another way to ask it is just like, what's it like to walk into a room full of like Wall Street executives with a cool man bun and tell them about Ethereum? What's the culture clash like?
There's funny stuff, and I talked about this at Dev Connect, but like the first 6 months was me figuring out how to translate the things that we care about in the Ethereum community and the value proposition of Ethereum to them, right? Like not decentralization, counterparty risk, not or reduction of counterparty risk, but all of these like translation layer. But once you do that, like it's honestly, once you have the translation layer, Ethereum kind of sells itself. Like I go into calls where people have bring a lot of ego and like want to be convinced that this was wrong and this doesn't make sense. And I would say like literally 99% of those conversations by the end of the hour, they're like, oh yeah, I get it. Like, this makes sense. Like, well, how do we do it? When do we do it? How do we start?
In a way, it feels almost relieving to sell to a sophisticated actor, despite what I think about the banking system, the bankers, like, they're not retail, and they're not just saying Ethereum doesn't do 1,000 TPS. Like, it's a new audience that's more sophisticated. And the fact that it has 100% uptime and is such a solid infrastructure, that being a selling point instead of something that is being used against us, like, that feels refreshing to me.
Yeah. And I didn't expect it when I went into this job. Honestly, I had no idea what to expect, but it seemed like it'd be fun. And yeah, I'm like, when you're talking to someone that it takes 10 days in the happy case to settle a trade in some weird private market, 12-second block times still matter.
Yeah, we love that. Okay,
it's fun. It's fun.
My last question, and then we'll hand it over to the audience, is, so it seems like there's been a shift in the Ethereum ecosystem over the last week or two, maybe month, and that's that we're going to scale the L1, and it seems like zkEVMs are going to be the way that we do that. And I'm interested. David Hoffman released an article a few days after the Vitalik tweet about this, and he said, "This is the new merge." Upgrading the Ethereum L1 to use the zkEVM so that it can do more TPS is the new merge. And I'm just wondering if you have any comment on that, since you were the quarterback of the merge.
Maybe that's the right lens. You know, it's fun to have it's fun to have a North Star. It's fun to have a guiding light. It's fun to have a really big mission. And I think, I don't fully agree with this assessment, but one of the assessments is post-merge. We've been in this phase of there's a lot to do, but there's not this like driving force, and maybe that becomes the driving force. We can have our cake and eat it too. I like the L2s. I like the scaling the L1. You know, if you read Vitalik's posts, it's one, y'all need to be better. You need to do better. I don't know what the hell we're doing here, but you need to be better. And then two is like differentiate. Like what? Like have a value proposition. And regardless of how much scales at L1, like subsidiary, scalable, secure environments, I think are going to be really valuable and a huge value proposition to the extended Ethereum landscape.
Yeah, what resonated for me there was that the merge was the last time the Ethereum ecosystem felt like really united and really positive. And, you know, I think you obviously deserve a lot of credit, as does everyone who worked on proof of stake for doing that. And I think maybe people are grasping for that unification and feeling like we're pushing the frontier together. And so zkEVM being the next merge is, not a pivot away from L2s, which are still useful for social and political scalability, but it feels like it's another opportunity to unify Ethereum. So, as the last unifier, any advice for the people who are working on zkEVMs?
They're complicated. They're a little scary, but this is slightly peripheral. But I was having a conversation this morning, and it dawned on me that if the AI stuff continues to play out as it seems to be, we might be in a position where the biggest bottleneck to upgrading the L1 is consensus. It's like social consensus. Like, I mean, if you can single shot, which you can't today, the upgrade after you kind of specify what you want. So we're going to be in wild territory. I guess fortunately the zkEVMs probably will take some artisanal code writing for at least a little bit longer. But yeah, good luck. It'll be fun.
Okay, so don't vibe code the protocol layer, is what I'm hearing.
I think we might be vibe coding the protocol layer very soon.
Okay, all right.
With a lot of QA bots.
Okay. I want to turn it over to the audience now. We have about 10 minutes left, and so if anyone has a question, please raise your hand, and I'll get you a mic somehow. Adam, do you want to be our mic runner if you're still around? Okay, well, it's in your job description now. If you just want to choose someone, and I'll remind people that questions are one sentence or less, and they end in a question mark. Go ahead, Nixo.
Question mark. Okay. Danny, one of the things that you warned about early on was LST capture, about one entity capturing a lot of the LST market.
I called it LSD,
I
but
think
they
you
didn't
did
like
call
that.
it LSD.
That was a good meme. That was before you were in the Wall Street arena.
You also, I think I remember you gave a talk last year about capture. How do you feel? I just gave a talk on governance. How do you feel like we're doing? Are we any more resilient to capture than we were 5 years ago when you started warning about it? Oh no, that face.
No, I don't know the answer. I mean, I think that we should be 10 times as worried, right? I think that if we're going to make the impact that we want to, the $120 trillion in investable capital that institutions manage need to begin to become protocolized and move into Ethereum rails, and like the implications of that on capture and social layer and governance are profound and terrifying. So I think like we have to succeed in these dimensions, and I think that they make your job only harder. So don't be complacent, please.
Next question, Griff Green.
Yeah, you make it into a lot of rooms that with people that don't really get to talk very much out there, and get their ideas out there. Do they have any major security concerns that you hear echoed a few times that we should work on as a community?
Yeah, I mean, one of the failure modes here certainly is super, like these types of institutions are going to be using custodians, and they have this decision-making process, which is nobody gets fired for using Microsoft or whatever, insert big name there. And so they end up like piling onto the same decision, even if there's a better one or a more resilient one. So I think custody in this complex space in a way that gives them resilient solutions and gives them solutions they're not going to get fired for is really important. There is a battle against Ethereum on Wall Street right now, saying that Ethereum, you cannot do private things on Ethereum. One of the things they're working on a lot is some privacy protocol stuff that will help power certain types of market activity. But I think that this isn't quite in the security standpoint, but we need secure, resilient, and expressive constructions for privacy, and compliant, honestly, for privacy on Ethereum, because blockchains, I don't need to name them out loud, but that say they have privacy baked in are like actually they're making the rounds. They're convincing. Ethereum is public and open and all of these amazing things, and you can build privacy on top of it, but like that little asterisk at the end, like Wall Street doesn't actually understand.
Are they afraid of quantum?
Not that much. Obviously, like the asset managers that are trying to actually custody crypto, some of them are probably getting cold feet on like Bitcoin and that kind of stuff, but I'm talking to people that care much more about like streamlining systems and upgrading systems, and I think that if you're in that space, you just kind of assume that like the systems are going to evolve. And for a system like Ethereum that does continue to evolve, it doesn't seem like an issue to them.
Cool. Dylan, go ahead.
All right, so you're out there evangelizing. From Etherealizer's perspective, what is winning? Is JP Morgan using Ethereum winning, or is JP Morgan using EVM and creating JP Morgan chain winning?
I mean, from my perspective, that's not winning. And the value proposition of being on a private island is becoming less and less. JP Morgan is an exception. They have that, it used to be called Quorum, something else. They do have a private chain that handles a lot of like internal operations and stuff, not in ways that I think are systemic to JP Morgan at this point, but even like their blockchain team, they're thinking deeply about like how to evolve their system so that they can still have some of the privacy that has been assumed in that system is they have to kind of keep. They can't just change that social contract, but them not being connected to the internet, to Ethereum, doesn't really make sense for the future of that. One of the big shifts at the beginning of 2025, like through 2024, was public blockchains. and them having the light bulb going off of, you have to speak their language, but they went through the phase of intranet versus internet, and everyone thought that intranets were going to be the thing that banks use, and like, no, they're all connected to the internet. And they're seemingly pretty willing to accept that reality, especially when you start talking about network effects around stablecoins, when you start talking about capital efficiency, where you can have your capital sit in a money market fund until the moment that you have to deliver payment, and you, when you're thinking about it on top of Ethereum and the networks on top of Ethereum, these things make sense. When you're thinking about like them having their own private little islands that have to figure out how to interop, you don't really get some of these magic things that, like, depends on who you're talking to at the banks, but like they can see the magic when you start explaining things like that to them.
We've got time for one more question.
What do you think is the most valid objection that you get from Wall Street and institutions?
So one of the big problems when you're thinking about upgrading markets is coordination problem. And so like an extremely valid objection would be, if I upgrade, I'm going to be on an island. All my peers trade and settle over here. And so it is difficult to find the path to get multi-trillion-dollar markets to upgrade in lockstep. And I think that's probably one of the most valid objections. Some of the other stuff is, some of these just institutions would rather be followers instead of leaders. And so the objection is like, sure, if stablecoin volumes 10x, yeah. If I can have my money market fund on chain, yeah. If all of that stuff's built out, yeah. But like, I'm like rung 3 in the totem pole. I'm just not going to do it first. And we don't have that type of like risk appetite, which I think is a reasonable objection. Like a lot of institutions are just literally not primed to like take the first steps.
All right, I think we're going to run up on time real quick, but I wanted to ask one or two final questions, Danny. The first is, if Etherealize is massively successful, what does the world look like in 10 years? So take us to 2036. You've upgraded Wall Street. What does it look like?
Oh, dude.
10 years is the aperture I'd prefer, but if you feel more comfortable at 5 or...
Finance is protocolized, right? Like we're upgrading these markets from the inside out. Business is better and consumers are more protected. You know, both sides of the aisle are happy. You're doing zk on-chain disclosures. You're doing loans with capital formation on-chain with pledged asset capital, like pledged cash flows and other assets to back the loans. You're doing global capital formation. You're having previously highly gated institutional markets being open to way more of the world, both in terms of non-institution and maybe and non-US. Capital efficiency has gone through the roof. Humans are, I don't know, living in utopia and kicking their feet up, and agents are running the whole thing. I don't know.
Okay. Last question, completely open-ended. Is there anything I didn't ask that you want to say?
Nah.
Danny Ryan, everyone.